Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan, and since the leak yesterday of Golgfag Maneater, I've been thinking about the ogres. If they're going to get some sort of content soon, as the rumors suggest, they need a rework. Now, I'm not saying that they need a complete and utter overhaul, but what they do need to do is fix up a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, let's get started. I've actually want to get some ideas thrown out as fast as possible. We'll start off with the generic stuff with the ogres. Like, for example, from the very beginning of your campaign, if you've defeated an army, you get the option of either getting some cash, getting some meat, or replenishing your troops. I really do think that replenishment and getting meat should be in the same actual thing, right? It just makes sense. And then just leave the third one to be the regular, kill all the captives and get some extra experience, just in case you might want that. But yeah, meat and replenishment should be in the same section. I like the meat system, I think it's pretty good and it can be improved as time progresses, but at the beginning you desperately do need this. Speaking of meat, Noblars should have a option to not only disband them, but disband them for extra meat for said army. This is because Noblars themselves are an actual food source for the ogres. They are quite nibbled on fairly often. I think actually Grease's Goldtooth has a rather famous Noblar which is missing a little bit of an ear. This will actually give Noblars some more uses because yes, some people do use them, but in most cases you're recruiting them because they're cheap. At a certain point you're going to be running out of food. Well, why not turn them into food themselves? I know that might sound a little grim to some people, but that's literally Warhammer lore, and I think that lore needs to be respected, and it would work quite well because there are certain cases where I've had armies moving around and I'm starting to run out of food. I don't imagine that Noblars would taste great, but ogres are ogres. Provincial capitals within the Mountains of Morn should be full capitals. I don't like the system that they're only tier 3 settlements. They're capital cities, and it just makes sense for them. It would work in a very similar system to how the Dark Fortresses kind of work for the Chaos Warriors. When you start going into the Darklands, when you start going into Cathay or any other location, they'd remain in tier 3, but if it's a famous ogre hold, like, the Great Hall of Greasus being one of them, it should be a tier 5 settlement with access to all the other troops. Yes, I know that might seem a bit weird, and you might think that as devaluing the camp system, but I don't really think that's the case. It just makes sense from a lore perspective that the large areas be large areas. This will also make it easier for not only yourself, the player, to be able to get some forces up and running, because it can take a small while to get a camp properly up and running, but also it will help the AI factions who do suffer a lot. Let's be honest here, the minor tribes do start to fail quite often, mostly because of Grimgore, and then when the Chaos Dwarves start getting some traction going, so it might be good to see them up and running a little bit more. I do imagine that it will also boost up AI Greasus a little bit because he tends to expand but suffers quite greatly for it. For some reason, a few times I've seen him actually focus up in the Darklands more than anything else. He'll take Darkhold and then just start building there, which is super odd. Alright, the camp system. I like camps, I think they're cool. You can get more of them since a patch, I think it was a few months into Immortal Empires that fixed them up, but they should be able to move. They should literally act like Black Arcs on land. They wouldn't be able to go into water, but you could have them moving around supporting your other armies, kind of like a moving war, which you can also use. But the main idea is having a moving, large settlement which you can be able to recruit from and also defend yourself with, so you'd be able to actually have quite a big tide of ogres moving around. Ogres never stay in the same area for too long. They'll essentially just destroy the place and then move. And this is a thing that is in lore. It's something that would work great as a gameplay aspect too, as we've already got that with the Black Orcs, but should just be movable in land. I believe that the mod does do this. There is a mod for this, but it should be done officially because at the end of the day, it's something that you expect from a Ogre rework. I think it would be very, very good, and it will loosen the strain for factions such as Skrog, who are in an area where you're surrounded by loads of enemies. The contract system needs to be reworked because, yeah, it's crap. I can't really say anything else other than that. The rewards aren't lucrative. Sure, you can get diplomatic relation bonuses, but yeah, big whoop. Sometimes you can get a nice item, sometimes you can get camp growth, which is pretty cool, but the most thing is there's no cash coming in. Money is quite important, especially when you're playing the ogres, which are normally getting paid quite hefty sums to go and attack something here and there. Really, there should be a bigger panel too, so it could just have more contracts, because the general amount isn't really great, and just be fleshed out to be a bit more like, yes, you are a ogre faction, but you're still mercenaries. I don't know about you, but in most cases, when I play the ogres, I just completely ignore that contracts are there. They just feel like they're very empty. A lot more money would be absolutely great. or just some nicer, cooler faction buffs every now and then, just to really incentivize you to do something with this. But right now, in its current system, it just feels stupid boring, let's be honest. I think that that's all that's needed to fix the ogres in general, to make the vanilla gameplay just a little bit more exciting. Moving camps, a proper actual building in the Mountains of Morn, and obviously better contracts, and obviously slaughtering as many Noblars as possible, you can't forget that. I know that might not be the most exciting thing to hear, but I think that it does actually come into play quite well like that. Then, what would need to be done is to improve the base game lords for the ogres, give them something unique to make them a little bit different. That way, you've got an option to play Greasus, and then you can have a totally different campaign with Scrog. And I've got some ideas for that too, so let's talk about that. When it comes to Greasus, you can have a system very similar to that of the Warriors of Chaos. There's a bunch of ogre minor tribes there, right? And they're all pretty much listed out throughout the Mountains of Morn. If you take them down to the last settlement, you can vassalize them. Or if you take their historic capital. So the capital of the province could actually count as that, where then the other ogres in the minor settlements will belong to you. It's something which kind of fits quite well, because if you go into diplomacy with other ogres, if they start something with a non-aggression pact with you and so on, Greasus actually mentions, you're not from one of my tribes. Whereas, yeah, if you vassalize them in the same system as the Warriors of Chaos do with the Norskins, then yeah, they're one of your tribes. It just adds to more of the over-tyrant feel as Greasus Goldtooth. You know, he is the over-tyrant. He does lead all the ogre tribes. You'll have them under your belt. They'll basically be like a smokescreen for you, and let's be perfectly honest, you don't really need minor settlements at certain points when you have enough camps up and running. The minor settlements are there just to kind of exist. You might as well give that to minor tribes who will just be paying you for existing too. I think something like this could work out quite well, as it would still allow you to have the big settlement, like I said earlier in the video, but the smaller settlements, which you really don't care about, yeah, it's just there, right? This also means, like the Warriors of Chaos stuff, if the faction ends up getting killed, you can get them back by taking over the historical capital, and that means that you will have your extra vassals. More of a smokescreen, and it just makes it so the ogres don't die out super quick. Grimgore just rampages through the Mountains of Morn. It's very, very obvious. And it means you'll be able to fight some more stuff, because one thing about long campaigns is by the time that you get to the Mountains of Morn, there's usually just no ogres to fight, which is just kind of sad. Obviously, this is a reused mechanic, but as we've been able to see with Thrones of Decay, reusing mechanics can be quite smart if it makes sense, and something like this makes a lot of sense for Greasus. And then the Scrag the Slaughterer, a character that is pretty much out of the way, but he's pretty cool. You know, his faction's supposed to focus around that of loads of gorges, for example, right? You're supposed to be very primal. The character is being told by the Great Moor to go and destroy this and take over that, and it's something that could be done in a very fun way by maybe just having a very similar system to that of the war mechanic, where instead of you'll be able to pick, maybe at a certain point, if you fill up the bar, it'll give you different options to go and attack. The bar would still work the same way as the orcs do, so as you start filling it up, you'll start getting bonuses towards your faction-wide stuff, so extra camp growth, extra growth in provinces, control, money, blah, 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 blah. But when you get there, you fill it out. Let's just give a few examples here. It'll say, go take Karazakarak, go take 8 Peaks, go take, I don't know, Altdorf, and go take Sartosa. These are 4 major capitals around the area, and each of them would provide separate other bonuses. You'd still also get a war army, but rather than getting all the way up to a 20 stack, you'll just get a 10 stack, and that would be just for gorges. It's just something different, but I think it works quite well, because the idea, after seeing what the Nurgle rework came into effect with, where all 3 legendary lords are different, but still the same, that could work very, very well for the ogres. That could give them just a little bit of fun to allow you for replayability. I know a lot of people aren't really interested in the ogres, but it's still something that could be done in such a nice way that people might enjoy that. These are just some ideas I have. I don't claim to know all the answers here. Maybe Creative Assembly have better answers, because, to be honest, you know, some of the stuff from the Nurgle rework, I wouldn't have actually expected, like the complete overhaul of the Plague system, and that was really, really fun. I'm currently playing a Kugath campaign in my own time, and just enjoying it a lot. But if you guys have some ideas, leave them in the comments below. The idea is just to throw some ideas to Creative Assembly, because at the end of the day, we want the ogres to be fun. We want the ogres to be enjoyable for a lot of people. And if we're going to get DLC for them next, which is very likely, then obviously some rework aspects need to come into effect. It's just really funny that Norska is still waiting in the corner crying. A lot of you did mention that on yesterday's video. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's have a bit of a discussion, and have a lovely day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon.